Yes, what is the story? Welcome back to another episode of the FPL Draft Duo podcast with myself, Nolezy, one half of the FPL Draft Duo. It's game week 21. It's a Friday evening. We're looking at a Monday waiver deadline with games starting back Tuesday. Loads of FA Cup this weekend. So we're going to have a look at some of the hard games, some of the Premier League teams that might be facing some difficult fixtures, looking at all the waivers and listener questions. We're going to try and find you a forward if possible. So let's get into it. Right, having a look at them FA Cup fixtures, and just to note, all 20 teams will be playing in the FA Cup over this week. Everton have already played. We have Villa West Ham tonight. We have United Arsenal Sunday. So it's a good few days that it spans across. Now, some teams get slightly more rest in the game week 21 to 22. Let's say Villa, for instance, they play tonight, Friday, and then they play again Wednesday, whereas I think it's Forest. That's right. Forest play tomorrow, Saturday, and then they play Tuesday again. So 2 days less rest. But I think all in all, teams are going to be pretty strung out for players because after that, we have on average maybe 3 days rest. So over game week 21, 22, 23, we're going to see an awful lot of rotation, even amongst what we know as nailed players. We might be able to find some gems in there that might get 1 or 2 starts over them 3 games, but for the most part, we're going to have to expect some rotation. And yeah, we can target them really nailed players that might play all 3 games, or at least start all 3 games and play maybe 60 to 70 minutes. Could be a big difference over this period. I've just highlighted some teams that have relatively difficult fixtures for their team. Let's say Forest play Luton. Again, Forest going unreal, but Luton are going to go all guns blazing, and Forest might rotate a couple of players. Brighton against Norwich. Again, same way. Norwich are going to be going out there to beat Brighton at the FA Cup. Bournemouth, West Brom, Arsenal, United, massive one on Sunday. Leicester, QPR, Villa, West Ham, and then Bristol and Wolves. All the other ones I expect the Premier League teams to either win comfortably or have a really rotated team, possibly both. So we kind of keep the eyes on the likes of Villa, West Ham, big games, United, Arsenal, big games that they're probably going to have to put out close to their starting 11 to get the job done. Quick look at injuries and suspensions. So big emphasis on forwards this week. A lot of people are scrambling, and rightfully so. Let's have a look at people who are definitely out. Ferguson, I have heard no news on, or at least no positive news. I had a mid-season draft during the week, so I was like looking all over for news on Ferguson. Unless there's something I haven't seen or has just come out, he's out. Big talks about him going to either Bournemouth or even West Ham, but he has only played, I don't know how many minutes he's played. I think he's only got 2 starts this season. Big ankle injury at in the last season, and has a reoccurring injury. So unfortunately, Ferguson doesn't look like an option unless things change. Unal did his ACL, so that's a big problem. Evan Nielsen, broken foot. So again, Bournemouth, a lot of changes and a couple of people that we could target for them. And then Kepa is playing Chelsea, so he can't play against his parent club. Some doubts. We have Nick Pope, so talk about Nick Pope and when he could be back. Welbeck is a doubt, might play. Pedro is a doubt. Apparently he's going to be out spraying the ankle. Henderson, apparently the keeper for Palace, has picked up a slight illness. DCL, as always, slightly injured. And then Broja picked up a slight injury in the FA Cup games. Now, there's going to be a huge amount of changes over the weekend, but it's just too small of a window to wait to do the podcast. So any updates, make sure you're following on Instagram and Twitter. And then Pass Fit, Botman started last weekend, played 90 minutes. Kanate as well started, or Kwanzaa punt didn't last very long. Kanate is back, played twice, I think, during the week. Definitely back fit. And then Shar is back from suspension, so also another very good pickup. Right, on to our keepers. We haven't had a few keepers in a while, but we do. Starting off, and I think clubs are buying players just so that I can't pronounce their names. Stick for Leicester has started the last 3 games. No clean sheets, but again, if you're looking for a keeper, if maybe you have an injured keeper, trying to think of who got injured recently. A lot of keepers are coming back, funny enough. Flecken came back. Fabianski is on the way back, so again, he could be another good pick. Why I wouldn't be too hot on Fabianski is because with Potter coming in there, he might be looking to Areola. But let's look at our Leicester man. Obviously, we don't have a lot to talk about because he's only played 3 games, but 2.3 goals conceded per 90, not great. We know that's expected with Leicester, but 3.3 saves, not the worst. 2 points per start, and their next couple of games are Palace at home, Fulham at home, Spurs away, and then Everton away. So again, you know what you're getting with Leicester. It's just, do you need a keeper? Will you get a couple of points? If so, he's your man. Kinski for Spurs, their new man who started in goal during the week. Obviously, we don't have much stats on him. We've no stats in the Premier League for him, but based on his League Cup heroics, 1 goal or 1 start, 1 clean sheet. He had 6 saves in that game and played very, very well by all accounts. We know what Spurs are like. They're going to concede goals regardless. If you can keep up those saves, well, then we might be looking at a few points. And if they somehow can get a few clean sheets, great. Van de Ven is back in a couple of weeks, so maybe you're getting him in preemptively to look for a more solid Spurs defence, if that's ever a thing. But let's look at their fixtures. Arsenal at home, Everton away, Leicester at home, Brentford away. So you might be looking towards Everton, not the most free-flowing football. And then Leicester also can score against anyone. So you're kind of picking him up for saves, and hopefully you might get a clean sheet. I think one of the better punts. So I have Stolarczyk as a punt. I have Kinski as a safe pick. We know he's going to play. And then Pope as a punt. But again, probably one of the best options because we know he's going to probably play when he comes back into that team. Started 15 games this season, 3 clean sheets out of those 15. Only conceded 1.4 goals per game. So out of the 3 here, we know, right, that they're going to have the best statistics defensively. 3.6 saves per game, which is still decent for a side that's supposed to be okay defensively. And they have actually solidified even more since he's been out. And then 3.2 points per game. Again, nothing major, but Newcastle weren't amazing at the start of the season. So hopefully when he comes back, or if he comes back, that those points can gradually go up to maybe even a 4 per game. That would be very, very good. Their fixtures, I haven't anything down because I don't think he's going to play for the next 3 weeks, and it's estimated around that. He's back training on the pitch on grass, but not with the first team. So again, as a keeper, you need to build up the fitness, the resilience. So I think it's going to be another 2 to 3 weeks, and then he's probably good to go. So a nice little investment if you're willing to punt on Pope. Onto our defenders now. We have some very good picks, some very high level players from some good teams for defenders this week. Again, we'd like to think that a lot of them are nailed. I'm going to start with 2 very good honourable mentions, more so kind of trade targets. Some of them might be on the waiver, but let's look at Dalot first. And I think Dalot is worth a mention. Absolutely destroyed Trent last weekend and is one of those nail players for United. They actually have a very good run of fixtures, and if they can solidify themselves, I think I might have said that phrase a million times over the course of the last 18 months, but they play Southampton at home, Brighton at home, Fulham away, and Palace at home. They play Spurs away after that, and then Everton and Ipswich. The likes of Ipswich, Everton, Palace, Southampton, none of them are, free-flowing football that's going to score a load of goals. Maybe Ipswich, but you'd like to think United might keep a couple of clean sheets, and although he seems like he actually has great potential, he has 2.7 expected goal involvements, but only 1 assist so far. So hopefully he can actually improve on that. Player that I'd be looking towards if he's on the waiver, or even get him in a trade. Fabian Schär, we mentioned him at the start, back from injury, stalwart for Newcastle. Their captain, and I expect him to start most days. Now, the only issue is that Botman's back fit, Dan Burns fit, Hall playing unreal, Livramento playing very well, so you could see some rotation in there. Their fixtures are decent as well. Wolves at home, Bournemouth at home, Southampton away, and Fulham at home. So it's not as long of a run as United's, but still very good. And Schär actually always usually racks up some good expected goal involvements. I think there was a nearly 6 months where Schär had a goal involvement every 5 or 6 games, so he can do it I really like him as an FPL pick. Our 3 selected picks this week are punt, our safe, and our top pick. I'm going to start with our punt. We'll start off with a Stupinan. And a Stupinan stats have pleasantly surprised me. I thought, if I was looking at the whole course of the season, he's hardly played. But in the last couple of weeks, he has been relatively nailed. He came back from an injury last week and played the 90. Before that, he didn't play any minutes. So again, he's been kind of on and off the radar. But prior to that injury, he had been nailed down for a good few games for Brighton, and we know what he can do. If you look at his heat map, you want him immediately. But he's started 13 games, averaging 78 minutes per game, so still decent amount of time. It's Brighton's defence that hasn't been rock solid. He's racked up 2 expected goal involvements. His stats, his returns haven't been amazing. 0 goals, 1 assist, and 1 clean sheet, and only 1.92 points per start. So not amazing, but again, we're looking for an improvement. That's what we're always looking for. Their next fixtures, 2 of them we could be targeting. Ipswich away, United away. Again, if I'm looking at it from an attacking perspective, United's actually not the worst game. Everton at home, again, they're not scoring that much. And then Forest away, which actually is a very tough fixture this year. So a good, decent little punt pick if you're looking for an attacking wing-back that could have high trade value in the future. Kanate has replaced our last week punts of Kwanzaa as a safe pick this weekend. I did not know Kanate was that close to coming back. So if no one picked him up or hasn't since, super pick. A really safe pick. Started 12 games this season, averaging 82 minutes per game. Apart from some injuries, he'd be essentially nailed down. Only 1.1 expected goal involvements, but we're looking for clean sheets as a Liverpool defender. 1 goal, 1 assist, 5 clean sheets, 3.38 points per game. Not bad. And some okay fixtures coming up. Forest away, Brentford away, Ipswich at home, and Bournemouth away. So again, the way Liverpool are going, you can see them keeping 2 to 3 clean sheets in them games. And then my top pick, player that I have drafted very recently, is Munoz. Munoz, by all accounts, from someone that was at the game as well, played unbelievable the last day and was one of Palace's best players, definitely in terms of attack. We know what he can do. He could haul on any given day, and hopefully over the next while he will do that. Looking at his stats, he's essentially nailed for Palace in that wing-back role. 4.8 expected goal involvements this season, 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 clean sheets. So essentially 8 returns out of 19 games is not bad. And it's the next couple of fixtures that we're looking towards. Leicester away, West Ham away, Brentford at home, and United away. Palace have a really good run, and if anyone's going to take advantage of those fixtures, hopefully it will be Munoz. Right, looking at some midfielders over the next while, and I have 3 players here. Again, 1 or 2 might be already wavered, but if not, I would definitely look to get them in my team. I'm going to start with an honourable mention I don't have on screen here, but Smith Rowe, we talked about him like 4 weeks ago, and I thought he'll get back into that team, but had a slight injury and didn't really play over the Christmas period, but did start in the FA Cup. Now, not saying he'll start in game week 21, but I think that if you're looking for a 5th midfielder there and there's no one glaring out on the waiver, I think to bring in Smith Rowe as a nice little upside pick would definitely be a good option. My punt for this week, or for the next couple of weeks, is Trossard, and I suppose it could be Trossard, could be Martinelli. I have Martinelli down as a safe pick, Trossard as the punt. And before we kind of go into their stats, well, we have Saka injured. We have Wanyeri, who has picked up an injury. Now, how serious that is, I don't know, and that's why Trossard is the punt, as Trossard more than likely will be playing on the right wing, as we've seen. Martinelli predominantly the left, Jesus through the middle, and then maybe Havertz, a Rice, and maybe not a Partey, probably a Moreno is my guess. Partey, we'll talk about Rice in a bit, but Partey could be, in a bit of bother, therefore solidifying maybe a Moreno or definitely a Declan Rice down. In terms of our wingers, Sterling hasn't featured at all. Unless Sterling comes into that team and pushes one of these out, I feel, right, that Martinelli is going to be the left winger. Jesus is going to be up top, and Trossard is probably going to play right wing. Now, the thing about Trossard is that he is versatile, so he could play through the middle if they needed, play as a number 10, whereas Martinelli is like a left wing and left wing only. So I have Trossard down as a punt. I think the punt in my head has a higher probability of exploding. hence the graphics. But Martinelli could be that punt as well, vice versa. I think Martinelli as a safe pick because I feel like longer term, if I was keeping these for the rest of the season, Martinelli in my head would be more solid. Okay, Trossard is always going to be in and out. We know that. Although Trossard has featured in all 20 games, but only averages 56 minutes per game, whereas Martinelli has started 13 and averaged slightly higher, 65 minutes. In terms of their output, Martinelli again is slightly higher in terms of XG and output, 6 XG compared to Trossard's 4.5, and then the goals and assists. Martinelli is a combined 7 goals and assists, 5 goals, 2 assists, whereas Trossard only has just the 6. And again, in the terms of their stats, shots per 90, very little between them. 1.2 Martinelli, 1.4 for Trossard. So you can kind of see even through the stats that when Trossard plays, he's kind of more explosive in terms of his output. But per start, Martinelli actually has the higher points, 4.92 per start, which is actually really, really good. And I'd be very, very happy to have a player with that in my team. But again, Trossard with 3.7, I think Trossard will bring that up if he continues to start. The only issue is that Arsenal don't have the easiest of fixtures. Spurs at home, which probably isn't actually too bad for attack, and I have it down here as green. Villa, tough fixture. Wolves, grand fixture, and then Man City. Again, Arsenal are kind of fairly thin in terms of who they have, so again, I see these boys starting unless I'm missing something. I see Martinelli left wing and Trossard right wing, 2 very, very good options. The reason I go Martinelli over Trossard is because of long term. And then my top pick is Semenyo. A lot of people asking about Evan Nielsen replacements, Unal replacements, what do you do? I think Semenyo plays up top. He's played through the middle before. Parts of last season played through the middle. Obviously, we see him actually more effective on the wing, but I think for now, unless they make a purchase, unless we see someone else play through the middle, maybe at the weekend in the FA Cup, Semenyo is the man that plays through the middle for me. Essentially nailed. 19 games out of 20. I think it was banned for the one for yellow cards. 87 minutes per game. 8.6 expected goal involvement's pretty good for the season, with 5 goals and 2 assists. Actually the same as Martinelli. So again, the kind of the narrative around Semenyo being unbelievable and Martinelli having a poor season, stats wise, it's not there. But in terms of output, 4.1 shots per game for Semenyo, way more active, but only 3.8 points per start, which is a good bit lower than Martinelli's. And they have some really tough fixtures. But again, if I'm thinking a whole season, I know Semenyo is playing for Bournemouth, no questions asked. Chelsea away, Newcastle away, Forest and Liverpool at home. 4 extremely tough fixtures, but again, if you're making an investment for the rest of the season and hopefully having a player out of position, Semenyo is the man. Right, forward section, big issue this week. Pedro with a sprained ankle apparently, Welbeck out but possibly back, and Evan Nielsen definitely out, Unal definitely out, Ferguson no word. Couple of people saying like, should I swap from Welbeck? I think Welbeck's going to be okay very soon. I think Pedro won't be too long. So yeah, it might be unfortunate for the next 2 weeks, but yeah, don't be trading them out for a Beto. 2 players I have on screen are Duran and Beto. These are very short-term plugs. Duran back able to play, but I still expect Ollie Watkins to start. Now, as I said, Villa are playing a lot over the next 3 games, so I do expect a Duran start over one of those, so probably the best pick up that might be available on the waiver. We know what he does. Yeah, he might get the random start, but for the most part, it's going to be 20-30 minute cameos. 5.2 expected goal involvement, which is pretty good for someone who plays off the bench. 7 goals. I probably expect him to start. I don't know which ones, but probably one out of the next 3 anyways, and then maybe get 40 to 50 minutes combined in the other 2 games, which is not a bad result for a waiver striker. Beto, on the other hand, I just see him playing probably the next game week against Villa, because DCL has picked up an injury, as I said at the start. Beto picked up an injury in the FA Cup, so I'm looking at the waivers there. People are texting me saying, who should I pick? And I cannot see anyone. There is a question on the next slide, the listener questions, and I suppose I'll kind of answer it now regarding forwards. And it's like, who should I target? And In terms of wavered forwards, and I'll go through them here on my FPL page, like Broya when he comes back, maybe, but for the most part, no. Richarlison is flagged, probably no, anyways. Um, the Southampton man is probably one of the better low-level picks. I got his name wrong the last week. Someone reminded me. Anucha or whatever his name, Anuchu or whatever it is. Paul O, we'll call him. He played the last 3 games, 90 minutes, 64, 54. So, Archer could start next game week. So he's not even that solid. Beto is a 1 game week punt. Ferguson, no return date. Awoni came on for a minute and banged. You can't really bank on that. Nketiah, not getting game time. Fulkrug is the next big one. And he's probably taken. Last week we said take Fulkrug. He'll probably start up top for West Ham for the foreseeable. He's the next one. Højlund I have down here. This is just in order of points. I think he's actually a decent pick, but not going to be on the waiver. Armstrong could start, mightn't start. Jesus, decent picks. Some people said, should I swap Welbeck? What was it? Should I swap Jesus for Welbeck? I wouldn't do that. Jesus is going to be starting for the next while. Xerxes, can't start him. TCL, wreck your head. So you're looking at, and again, if I'm looking at targeted forwards, Njai always starts for Everton. Not crazy high points, but will start. Gakpo, super pick. Mateta, really, really good pick for the foreseeable. Welbeck, if you have hold, if you don't have him and he's on the waiver, I'd pick him up. Havertz, average. Average out of the elite forwards, we'll say. João Pedro, hold. Very good pick. Strand Larson, decent pick, but really tough forwards. Delap, tough fixtures. Solanke is a really, really good one that I think will hit the ground running from now on. 12 returns in 20 games, not bad. Actually only played in like 18 of them. Raul Jimenez now was really high in terms of value, in terms of price. So yeah, obviously a great pick, but will be very sought after. And then you have the rest. Obviously your Chris Woods, obviously your Isaacs. Nick Jackson is going well down in value. So maybe an Nkunku gets a start recently. But again, if I had to pick like 3 players that are wavered that I target, it would be Solanke, Raul Jimenez, and Mateta. And if I had to pick players that might be on the waiver that are just solid, that I know are going to play, Ndai, Gakpo, and Højlund. They're really, really kind of low-level ones that are just going to be solid, that maybe in different size leagues people haven't them picked up. But in terms of forwards, it's a really, really difficult landscape in the draft normally, but more so game week 21. And finally, on to our listener question section. Thank you as always for sending them in. Instagram is the best place. We are getting back to as many as possible. If it's not read out on this or replied to on the story, give us a DM and we'll get back to you. So, starting off, should I waiver out Højlund for Maguire against Southampton? I think that's a good decision. Bournemouth's fixtures, as I said earlier, 4 extremely tough ones in a row. Get Maguire in, play the fixtures, why not? Trade. Sancho and Larsson for Callum Hudson-Odoi and Gakpo. And I had to think over this one. Let's break it down as I always do. Gakpo is the player I want most here. Larsson, obviously a great player, but really tough fixtures. Sancho, good player as well. Maybe I could be wrong in going for the Gakpo here, but I always like to pick the best player, and then like Callum Hudson-Odoi is a waiverable player. Sancho is a good player, but also could be wavered on any given day. So look at your midfielders. If there's a couple of midfielders you could get on the waiver, I'd go Gakpo and Callum Hudson-Odoi, and maybe waiver out Callum Hudson-Odoi depending on fixtures, playing time, whatever. If it's really, really light on the waivers, Sancho and Larsson's probably a good option, but I'd like to go for Gakpo. I really need a forward. Who should I target by trading Diallo and Evan Nielsen? As I've said, the ones I target that are realistic are Mateta, even Højlund. I know people don't rate him that very high, but I think he'll start for United for the most part. Who else I say? Raul Jimenez. Those are the players I'd be targeting. Solanke. I think Solanke is slightly undervalued. Like, some people might take Raul Jimenez over Solanke right now, and I think that wouldn't be the best decision. So yeah, as I said in the previous slide, those are the ones I'd be targeting. Fulkrug and Cucurella for Darwin and Saliba. Who wins? I like the Fulkrug and Cucurella because you've 2 playing players. Darwin is such an idiot. Banned this game week for what could have been worse. I think it was on Mazraoui. I can't remember who it was. A shoulder. So Darwin's just an idiot that you do not want in your team. Saliba, obviously unreal, but I like the forwards, as we said, are very, very precious. Kirkes, I presume this is supposed to be Aurier, Ryan Nori, Mitchell, Mazraoui, or Cucurella. I'm actually, again, hopefully I'm taking my United hat off. I think Mazraoui is a good pick. United's fixtures are decent. Maybe second, Cucurella. Mitchell are actually also very good picks. I'm going to go Mazraoui. I'm going to go out on a limb and go for my United boys. Southampton this weekend. They play Fulham. They play Bournemouth. I think there are some good fixtures. Calafiori, a keep in a 9-man league. Yeah, I picked him up in a draft, and I think he's going to get some good game time. Back fit. Arsenal, if you have an Arsenal defender, it's always a good thing. I think he's a keep in a 9. It depends who's on the waiver. If there's a really good player, if there's a Dallo on a waiver, it's nailed. Probably slightly better off. But if you have the squad that you can slightly rotate, I'd like to keep him. Mitoma is still worth where he was drafted. Obviously, he's not worth where he's drafted. Maybe his points will be, but in terms of his trade value, no. Mitoma was one of the players that I'd be eyeing up. Really disappointing season so far, and has got rotated over the last while. But I think that he's not a bad player to target. Hertzler still hasn't found. If you look at Hertzler's team, the rotation is crazy, and maybe that's probably one thing to stay away from. But I think when things settle down, obviously the next couple of weeks is going to be crazy, but when things settle down, Mitoma is always going to be that best player on that left wing. So I do think he's worth having a look at. Obviously he's not worth where he was drafted, which could be like second, third round to some people, but still one that we should keep the eye on. Don't totally go off the boil. And then 4 kind of would you rather is this or that. Rice or Enzo. I think both of them are very solid players that we should be looking at over the next while to solidify our teams. I feel like Rice is slightly more nailed than Enzo, even though if you look back, that's not the case. But I think going forward it will be, and he's on them set pieces. I think if you're playing it safe, Rice. I think if you're like going for someone that might get a haul on any given day, Enzo's a decent pick. But I have Rice in one of my drafts, and he gets you like 4 or 5 points through bonus points every day. So I'm gonna go Rice. Sarr or Odegaard? Short term, Sarr. Long term, Odegaard. Dallo or Chalobah? I'm going for my boy Dallo. And then Vardy or Raul Jimenez? I'm going Raul Jimenez. Better team, more chances. As you see, they get more penalties because they're in the box more often. So I'm going to go Raul. Sorry, Vardy. And that is us. Game week 21 wrapped up. Thank you so much as always for listening, likes, everything. Appreciated a serious amount. So thank you. FPL Draft Yo out. Boom.